If you talk to anyone who says, oh, I wish I could have seen it, it will be on our YouTube channel. So if you know, I'm so embarrassed, I meant to announce that during our worship earlier. But that's part of why this is an informational meeting, not a congregational meeting. A congregational meeting is one where you can make votes and decisions, and it needs to be advertised a certain way, a certain time in advance. This one, you'll see, I'm going to give a quick introduction, Joe. On the front page here, we have our agenda, and you'll see it has two blue arrows, right? Starts with the word trouble. Yes, we're going to talk about the troubles that we are facing with our budget, but we're not going to stay there the whole time. We're going to move on towards solutions, and that is why we have the sheets with the asking you for ideas and thoughts about that, about what we can do to be more sustainable. And then we'll be moving toward talking about long-term improvement. We are talking today about stewardship and our operating budget. So I'm gonna work to keep us hemmed in to issues that pertain to that, although when we talk about the community survey and sharing ideas, there's a wide variety of things that can fit under that. But I want us to be thinking especially about our annual operating budget, because the things that are outside of that are generally, things that you'll deal with here, you'll deal with there, but our operating budget is every day of every week of every year, past 100 years, next 100 years. So we're gonna focus on those. Any comments that we make, we're gonna bring the microphone stand down here. You should have a packet.
Everybody have a packet?
Yep, here we go. We have such a good sound system here. I am so eternally grateful for whoever organized that and funded it. So I'm gonna turn the microphone on. I know people don't love using microphones, but again, because we're live streaming, we don't want to exclude people who couldn't physically be here today. So if you're going to make a comment, please come on forward to the microphone. In fact, I'll turn it around so it's not like you're talking to me as the teacher. I'm not the teacher. And there we go. And in all of this, we are centered around the baptismal font and the fact that we are united by our baptism. We are loved by God, and we are made into a community like the many droplets of water. So we keep that in our minds and hearts. So there we are, shall we?
Yep. Good morning, everyone. I'm Joe Martin. I'm the council president. And I'll get us started. Pastor will fill in also, move in. So a snapshot of our budget.
And if you want to find the paper for that, it's in your packet. It says GLC General Operating Snapshot, January through June 2025. This is as of half of the year, the end of June. All right, Joe, do you want to introduce us?
Yes. So when we look back to February, we received our operating budget for the year, the proposed operating budget for the year. And that budget anticipated a deficit by the end of the year of $22,546. Now, when that budget was put together, and if anybody has any questions, please bring it up, raise your hand, and I will try and elaborate. And I know there's a lot of numbers, and it can be confusing. So when they did the budget, they anticipated a $22,546 deficit. When they anticipated the budget, they anticipated 6 months of a part-time pastor, Pastor Wendelin, and they were optimistically hoping that we would, by mid-year, have a full-time pastor. So when they put in the money for pastor compensation, they put in $103,000, we'll call it, 102,975. Our actual expense will be more like $63,000. So that being said, our deficit by the end of the year, at the rate we're going, will be $40,000 bigger than anticipated because, and I know this is confusing stuff, they anticipated 102 and put in the budget 102. We are only going to use 63. So if we have a deficit, it's worse as a result of that. Is that clear? Am I being clear? Just speak out, let me know. I can take it.
So I'm a non-financial mind. Everything I say today has that disclaimer. I am a liberal arts major. But what I'm hearing is we had budgeted to have a deficit of 22,000 with less than a full-time pastor. But as of the end of July, we already had a deficit of 23,000, so a full year's deficit.
Well, that's the
within
next part.
6 months. Sorry,
Where
jumping ahead.
Heidi gave us a report through the end of August. And actual numbers at the end of August, we had a $25,110 deficit. And I think Heidi's in agreement. And Heidi, when you look at it, let me know if I'm wrong. But I think she would be in agreement that by the end of the year, we can anticipate a $40,000 or $50,000 deficit, unless something very good happens. Let's pray that something very good does happen.
And speaking of good, though, I did send out a letter in August on behalf of the church council. Giving did increase in August, comparing this August compared to last August. Giving did increase by $500 a week on average, which over the course of a year is $23,000, $26,000? Yes.
26.
So thank you, because that means that at least some of you here responded to that, and it has made a positive difference. It drives me crazy when an organization asks me for money and I give more, like I really stretch, and they're like, yeah, could you give more? And they never say how much was received. The giving has increased in August of all months, right? So it means that you're hearing that and it's making a difference. So thank you for that. It really does make a difference what each of us does, just like the balloons, right? These balloons would make a whole heap of space if they were inflated, right?
Yep. So, I mean, this meeting could have waited until February at our regular congregational meeting, but someone, myself included, if I were out there, would say, why didn't somebody say this beforehand? Why didn't somebody make us aware of this? And that's what this meeting is. It's to make us, as a congregation, make us aware of where we are at right now and where we're heading, potentially. You'll find in your packet the cost of a full-time pastor. And I put together using the ELCA's benefit package for pastors.
It looks like this.
That guy.
And this is published on the NewJerseySynod.org website if you wanted to see their version of it, but this is much clearer, simplified.
I tried to just be concise and do the best I could. And those numbers represent a pastor with 7-8 years experience. At the end of the day, we don't know what we're going to get for a pastor. One fresh out of seminary or one that's been at it for 25 years. We don't know. But using those numbers with $150,000, or 152, but we'll call it 150, that's going to mean about an $80,000 increase in cost for a pastor. So at the end of this year, if we end up with a $40,000 deficit, if we had a full-time pastor, we would probably be in the neighborhood of a $120,000 deficit. And that's what we need to figure out here. And that's why you have those forms for suggestions. We need to either increase our giving and increase our income, use our endowment fund to generate more money, or cut expenses, whatever expenses we can cut. But just like at home, you know, when you have X coming in and X going out, somehow we've got to find a balance to keep us stable and fiscally minded here, that we know what we're doing and we get through the next 10 or 20 years.
Yep. So question about the forms, the suggestion forms. I didn't capture them from the offering plate. Do we know if any were placed in the offering plate?
They were looking for the offering plate was gone.
Oh, okay. Okay. I apologize. I should have been ahead of the curve on that one.
Well, you have time. Stephen and
Yeah.
Mary Ann, he sent me an email with several suggestions of things we could do.
Let me get a pencil so I can write them down, because I'm curious what people are suggesting. I'll find one. Please go on. Don't wait for me.
And everyone has their own thoughts, and everyone will have their own thoughts. Hopefully, everybody's thinking this through. And Stephen sent this to me a couple days ago. They're traveling. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of people that aren't here that I know would be here, but there's a lot of people traveling. Corinne and the Sukiels and Grings, and a lot of people aren't here right now. Stephen said, since we are traveling during the time of the congregational meeting, informational meeting, I wanted to share some thoughts on how to approach this issue. He was past president, and he's aware of the issue also. Option one, take the full amount of the roof replacement. That's a subject we haven't broached, but we will in the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years need about $150,000 to replace the roof on this building. That's a whole nother subject besides this budget. He says, embark on a capital campaign to see how much of the cost can be raised to reimburse the fund. And we do, as Bob Grant Sr. had left $25,000 for an air conditioning system that never happened. And that's another story, but there is $25,000 that council and supporters agreed to kick off the roof fund. So that's a healthy start, but that'll be coming down the road. You'll see a plan to try and raise money for a roof. But the roof's not leaking, the roof's sound. We're trying to plan ahead and get ahead of this thing. Option two, float a loan through the Lutheran Church Investment Group. We explored this type of line of credit when we were proposing the renovation of the church and church sanctuary windows and office. As I recall, this line of credit can be paid back early and or left open for future needs. The terms of this loan are very advantageous and are...
Joe, I'm sorry. Yep. I'm not understanding what you're saying. Can you break those into separate...
So number two, Stephen's saying, get a loan for the roof, essentially, and then come up with a fund to pay it back. I think Stephen's thinking we need a roof maybe now or next year.
Right. Thankfully,
that
we
may
do not
be
need
the
that
case.
immediately.
We do have some time for this. And a capital campaign could also be started to raise funds to offset the loan. So that's his second idea. The third has to do with a call committee. I'm not going to read the third one right now because it's not particularly, other than he's suggesting a way with a full-time pastor to guarantee that they'll raise funds for us. But that's a call committee issue, and we'll get to that at another time. And Wendy and Jim are also on vacation right now. There's a lot of people away. It's a good time of the year. So the suggestions, and I know that it's a tough time to ask for suggestions when we're laying this on you right now. So you can get us those suggestions, and we will accumulate them, and they will all be discussed. Can you welcome to the mic, please? That's just so everyone out there can hear you.
If you're saying just a few words, raise your hand and I'll come to you, but if you're going to say a paragraph. Okay, well.
That's all right.
Okay, are we on here? Everyone can hear me?
Is it on? It's on. Just speak into it. Trust.
Okay.
There you go.
All right, so I'm thinking we need to deal with what's more immediate, okay? Joe, a couple of times just right now has said the roof is okay. All right, so we have what looks like it's going to be a big deficit. And that's where I think that money should go, okay? That's my personal opinion, but we need to deal with that. And so that's really all I wanted to say. Okay.
So if I'm hearing you, funds that are set aside for certain things, we would reallocate toward our operating budget
Well,
in order to be able to pay a full-time pastor? Is that, am I?
no, that's not what
Okay.
I said.
Give me
Okay.
another try.
So another try here. Bob Grant Sr. dedicated $25,000 to putting some kind of air conditioning unit in the parish hall here, and it was never utilized for that. And I'm assuming it's still there, right?
I know he would be more than happy to throw it in the kitty.
Okay. All right. That's really what I'm thinking. I think we need to deal with the more immediate problem, which is this huge deficit now. All of a sudden, we have this really, well, not all of a sudden, but we have a big deficit. So we need to move towards that before we need to move forward with a roof we still have a little bit of time out of. Is that more understandable?
Thank you,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. So as I understand that, does everybody understand that? She's saying take the 25 and reduce our deficit, as opposed to putting it into a roof fund right now, because the roof is, we don't know how far down the road.
I'm going to ask something else.
Yeah.
So I'm curious here,
Yep.
How do we know that we have 3 to 5 years? Have we had someone come and look
We
at the
had
roof and
two
say?
estimates on the roof. We had
Okay.
2 people come in, and there's nothing, right now, there's nothing, I'm on the facilities team too.
Okay.
There's nothing that they see as glaring problems.
Okay, well, that's good news.
Yeah.
So I think that's something we can put in the good news thing.
Yeah, but if you walk outside and look at the roof and walk around, you'll look at it and go,
That seems
That's
pretty
what we
straightforward
do.
to me.
yeah.
It is a gift that our congregation is in a place of caring for long-term stability and sustainability, not in a crisis, right? Thank God, thank you, both those who are contributing and those who are helping to manage our funds, that we are not in a crisis. However, looking down the road, and if you look at our budget through the eyes of, say, a 35-year-old pastor with a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old, are they going to uproot their family and move here to be a pastor of a congregation that is looking at a significant annual deficit? So looking at it through those lenses, but again, we're not at a crisis. And praise God, there are many faithful people who are blessing our congregation in many ways. So I do want to keep saying thank you. Yeah.
I spoke with the bishop last week about a couple subjects, but one in particular about the pastor, full-time or part-time. And there is, as we know, a serious deficit of pastors out there, where they used to produce a lot of pastors nationally, and now they don't. There's very few pastors coming out of seminary. And it's just as hard to get a part-time pastor as a full-time pastor. Would a part-time pastor solve our problems? Obviously not, because we have a part-time pastor, and we're looking at a $40,000 deficit this year. So we just need to think as a congregation, the whole thing through, and think of ways to increase our giving, increase our income, reduce our expenses. We have a heat plant that went in the 80s. We're in very good shape with our heat plant. We have replaced air conditioning units, and we're good with that. And the electric for this building was redone in the 80s. We have a solid building. It's well cared for. It's painted. It's a great building. So I don't see any, other than a roof, potentially. I don't see any major surprises coming. There's always something. Just like at home, there's always something. But we have taken care of this long term, and we're in pretty good shape as a result of it. Now we just need to fund our operating budget, to continue the church paying bills and being able to take care of all the things we need to take care of without beating up our endowment fund. If that's the other thing, that's the end of the day, when it's time to pay bills and we don't have the money, it's going to have to come out of the endowment fund. When it comes out of the endowment fund, our income comes down. We get income from the endowment fund. So,
Another thing that we are blessed to have is an endowment fund. Generations have made that possible.
thank goodness for those people. They were
Indeed.
far-sighted.
Yeah.
And thank God we had them. They did wonderful things. Microphone.
Well, she said, what is in the endowment fund? So do you mean like the current value is $1,004,000? Correct?
Right.
It's an easy number for me to remember. Indeed. Yeah. And so, we will be talking about legacy giving. Again, that's outside of our operating budget, but there's two directions for legacy giving. One is gifts that are made to the endowment fund, and we protect that principal as hard as we can. And right now we're set so that we don't touch the principal, but we receive the interest income. You'll also see on your sheet here, bequests is the second line down. Normally, bequests to an endowment fund are outside of the operating budget. Doris Witz, however, wanted her giving to continue after she died. And so in her estate, she made a plan so that her annual giving could be continued. And I don't know the name for that. Oh, yes.
I was just gonna say,
Yeah.
when does that end? She covers operating costs?
So so right now, my understanding is it's the interest from her gift, but over time, the principal can wear down on that. I don't know anything about the principal. But that is something we want to advertise, is that if you look at that and go, oh my gosh, because the story is, we went into our June council meeting with a deficit of how are we going to pay our bills, and then Doris plan, she actually told her financial planner, I want that money to appear sometime in the summer months when giving is lean and church councils are stressed. So, this is how much she thought through her care for her congregation. So Doris Witz, thank you. But to keep that in mind as you think of your own estate, whether you're $10,000, $200,000, $1 million, I don't know. But things like this are possible, and that can be in the operating budget because we can count on it every year. Normally, a one-time bequest, it would go to the endowment fund unless specified otherwise. Does that make sense? Okay, so there's a note on the back and explains about Doris Witz. Okay, are there any other suggestions that anyone would want to put in this list that you'd like to say out loud now? If you just want to shout it out, I'll repeat it. You don't have to come to a mic. Jim. Okay, Jim's coming to the mic. Thank you. Well done. Okay, so Jim is saying as a member of the support team, which is our finance team.
This is my own personal take on this. The one thing that we're looking for is stability, stabilization. Now, of course, we have the endowment. We got a certain amount of money out of that, which we depend on to help balance the budget when we can balance it. But another thing maybe we could do is in the future, and maybe now somehow, when they put the envelopes, it's usually your local church, and then other, right? Something like that.
You mean for our giving envelopes?
Yeah, on the envelopes.
Mm-hmm.
And we put up maybe a third option would be so much each month in maybe a stabilization fund or something like that. I know I contribute on the, through the computer, but maybe an option to do that. And that will make people think we've got to do something. And then short term, maybe we put in, send out extra envelopes or something and just say we need to stabilize our budget so we are not going into the hole. But I think something like that, because this is one of the few churches that is financially viable in this community. A couple of the churches, for different reasons, have let's say, they've gone down the toilet. I won't go into the stories I've heard around town.
Yeah.
But, we're one of the few stable, really stable churches in the area.
Yes, we
Particularly
are.
the Lutheran church. I mean, it was hinted at a couple of years ago, we should combine with somebody else, and we put the kibosh on that.
Okay. So there are two things I heard in what you were saying. So one is kind of counter. Edna was saying, we can use some of our other funds with permission. So if you give something that is in a dedicated fund, we cannot go touch that. So please feel safe with that. But so some funds could be directed to the operating budget. You're actually saying the opposite, which is create a stabilization fund, a rainy day fund.
Yeah, well, we can do what Edna said too. I mean, that has been done in the past because Heidi has moved the money around.
Just that one, just the $25,000.
Yeah, but,
Yes.
we moved money around before in that budget.
Yeah, okay.
And Heidi has been very good at that because back some years ago, she always said we had to rob Peter to pay Paul. And then there are different lines in that budget where there's money there that doesn't get touched sometimes.
Yeah, we have like the youth gathering fund,
Yeah.
which we aren't sending youth every 3 years to the national gathering, for instance. Yeah.
I mean, if we want to grow this congregation, we need to get somebody in here who can help us do that. And it's not just on the pastor, it's a group effort to maybe recruit families and do that type of thing too.
Yeah.
But it is a group effort to solve this program. Neither you or I have complete answers, but I'm sure we can come together and figure out some way of resolving this. I mean, a couple of things, what Edna said, and maybe setting up some other funds. Or I even suggested maybe the council could do a dunk tank for us at the Oktoberfest.
He volunteered me already to sit in.
Yeah, okay. I'm just an idea, so.
Well, thank you. Now, you can have a seat. Our early
Thanks, Jim.
service did have this conversation as well, and so increasing membership was one of their discussions. And so we might need to have practice in talking to each other and getting comfortable with saying to someone, do you have a church family? Or I've seen churches where you put one of those yard signs that says like, I love my church, Grace Summers Point. Because your neighbors probably don't know what church you go to, but to see affection and trust, so there are ideas that we could work on in terms of evangelism. And that's one of those examples that a half-time pastor, it's very hard to have time for that, right? We have enough kids now. In fact, that young couple that visited have 3 small kids, right? We have enough kids. We could do a youth group. I can't do all the communion calls and start a youth group. And the other volunteer that wanted to take part had to step back, right? So there's good energy here. You as a congregation, I mean, it's really beautiful to see people being blessed here and new families coming with kids, right? New people of all ages, though. Wait, let me say. There are some folks here that weren't here a year ago, or I didn't know you a year ago. So increasing membership is an option. Usually when you increase membership, then you do have to teach those people why we give and how much you ought to expect to give, which is something I'd like to speak to. But was there anything else on this list that anyone would like to bring up? Okay.
We're not unique here. We're not an anomaly. This is very
We are
common
not an
in all the
anomaly.
churches now.
Yeah.
We are unique in that we do have a good endowment fund. A lot of people don't. We have an investment committee, and they have come up with ideas. And before our next council meeting, we hope to get council and support and the investment committee together to hash out their ideas.
Yeah.
And,
So that would be
It's
the
just a
different
little- it's
voices
just a
in
little
one
part of it.
room and not exclusionary. You don't have to be on one of those teams to be there. My experience, I have a lot of people coming to me with specific financial strategies. I'm not the person to talk to about that because it's not in my role as a pastor, as a minister of word and sacrament, and I'm a terrible financial mind. We're not bankrupt at our house, we're doing okay, but.
That's good.
So, one idea that has been floated and that I want you to put, whether in the back of your mind or the front of your mind, but would be the idea of yoking with another congregation to share a pastor. I will say this is more than a half-time congregation, but maybe you find a congregation that would want a quarter-time or a third-time pastor, and you could partner with them. But again, where are they going to be on Christmas Eve? Are you okay with having your pastor here 2 to 3 Sundays a week? That's hard, right? It's not even really worth too much looking into of connecting with another congregation and they sell their building, right? But as the church, as the Lutheran church in the 1950s went and planted a church in every town, do you only get groceries in your town? Right? Do you only go to the doctor in your, it used to be that way. You had your post office, your doctor, your church, but not anymore. We're a very mobile society. Having a Lutheran church in every town, it means that we're all having these conversations, right?
Everybody.
But you might need to think, if we can't increase giving, what sacrifices can be made? And could a sacrifice like that build up another congregation that's a little further away, like a half hour away, that certainly couldn't afford a full-time pastor, right? That might be part of your mission, but that's something to be thinking about. Our new bishop, Bishop Krista Compton, amazing person. She really is. She's so caring. She's so loving, and she's so wise. But she is right now looking at all the congregations and going, how are we going to do this? Where are we going to be in 5 years? The expectation is in our synod within 5 years, 50% of worship services will be lay-led. So start wrapping your minds around that.
The bishop did bring up yoking, and Dean Brown is our interface to the synod. He's the guy that I deal with and that has been dealing with us for quite a while. But they brought up yoking, and yoking can also be you join with another congregation and they get a service at 9 o'clock and you get a service at 10:30 or whatever the case might be.
And then you have a shared first communion class.
Essentially, you
for
still
kids,
have
right?
communion, you still have a pastor, and you're shared, and he does double duty. Just another thought. These are all just thoughts, and please all engage your minds. You've got a lot of good brains out here. Come up with some ideas and let us know. We're all reaching. We're trying to sort this out. That's what we're all trying to do.
Yeah, exactly. We don't live only in the trouble because God is with us. God has put us together in community. God has given us so many different kinds of gifts. So we want to move towards solutions for this budget cycle, but also then moving toward long-term improvement and stability. So are we ready to move on from part 3, the community?
Just one more thing.
Yes.
So we are,
Edna, come on up to the mic. I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay. All right. So, so this is the part where we move to pastor talking about giving. So I'll stand up,
Yep, I'll have a seat.
take my authority.
Go right ahead.
And I do, when we think about giving, it does drive me around the corner when I give to an organization. They say, we have a $10,000 match if you can give. And I go, wow, all right, we're going to cancel eating out this week and we're going to send that money. And then the next week they're like, oh, now we have a 3-time match. And, they never say, when we asked for $10,000, we got $11,000. Or when we asked for $10,000, we got $2,000, right? Because even that $2,000, people gave that. And that's not easy. So every time you stretch, I want you to know it truly is appreciated and makes a difference. So proportional giving. So I haven't seen a lot of stewardship talk here. So stewardship is how we use all the gifts God gave us, right? So everything that God gave us, right? From our smile to this building to whatever skills you have that have helped you to earn an income, or the years you put in that have now led to a retirement income, right? So proportional giving, you've heard the story of the widow's mite, right? There were people saying, we're so faithful, we do so much, and she went up and she put in 80% of her budget for that week. And they mocked her, and Jesus said, oh, do not mock her. She has given proportionally so much, and every mite makes a difference in our budget, and the spiritual gift of trusting God and of caring for community that happens in financial giving, as well as giving of time, giving of knowledge, giving of prayers, right? So proportional giving is something that I want us to be thinking about. In the past, you probably have heard people say, if you could give $5 more a week, or if you could give $9 more a week. Well, that's not proportional, right? That's assuming everyone here has the exact same financial setup. We don't. So that's where proportional giving means that, and if you would turn in these little invitation packet things, it says, I offer my praise and thanks to God, okay? But first, look at the little chart here. So this is a chart of proportional giving. So you would find the example of how much you, as a household, earn annually. And then you would follow across. The numbers go from 1% to 10%. So, a few years ago, average charitable giving, amongst American households was, I believe, at like 3 or 4%. The reality is, in terms of all charitable giving, that's gone down to 1 or 2%. So that's sad. It also means that everything you give is amplified. It means that much more. As other people step back, if you're able to stay with your giving or even increase it, it has a bigger effect. So you can chart where you are on this. It does go up to 10%. And so that is tithing. And I don't know what you know. This might all be completely obvious to you. And if it is, I apologize. I don't want it to be like I'm treating you like school children. But a lot of us have not been taught that. And in fact, the young lady that visited today, she's new to Christianity. If I said tithing, she would say, do what now? So throughout Scripture, God tells us to set aside 10% of what comes in for us. And it used to be buckets of grain or, half a cow. And so now we measure that in terms of dollars. And so to ask that you would give 10%, the general financial advice these days is to save 10%, give 10%, and spend 80% of your financial picture. Does that make sense? So you're spending 80%, 10% is going towards your savings. Many of you are at a point now where you're starting to use your savings because you were wise enough to set it aside. But that giving away 10% has so many good effects. Obviously, it affects our congregation in beautiful ways. It affects you, that you are able to have the joy of giving and the sense of contributing to what we do here, to know that we can't do that without you. It also, if you actually look at the percentages, as soon as people, studies show, as soon as people go from, well, I'll give what feels generous to, I will give a percentage, giving increases. It just does, because you're looking at your whole budget and you're working to organize that whole picture. So it's not based on how I feel this week or what, what my short-term income is this month kind of thing. So studies show that when people move to percentage giving, they automatically give more. The other thing is it does give you a way to increase your giving over time. So if you are currently giving 5%, thank you, truly. Can you try for the rest of this year to give 6%? Or can you look at your 2026 projection and say, I'm going to aim for 6%. And that's how many dollars this calculates to, per week, per month, per year. And so the other part of that is studies do show when people write it down, so you can open your paper, when people write down their plan for giving, they automatically give more without even intending to. It's just the way it works. You'll see there's no name on here. You are not writing your name. Whatever number you write down, no one is judging you or comparing you or anything like that. We are asking if you can fill this out and then return it. In the month of November, we'll have a box here with a little slit on the top. You put it in this way, no one sees what's inside, okay? But we're asking you to, many of you are already intentional. See, this is the thing, is as I'm saying this, some of you are going, I already am. And if so, thank you. I will let you know, I as a pastor do not find out how much people give. I find out if you give 0 or more than 0. Because if people are giving 0, either they're in some kind of a bind and they need my care, or spiritually, they're just not sure and they need my care. So that's how that works, just so that you know, because I'm looking at you, but I don't know what you give, okay? But the council is asking for our planning purposes. The other reason is that then a year from now, when we try to do the same thing, we'll be able to compare apples to apples, right? So we're asking you to fill this out and to bring it in November. You'll get this in another mailing. There'll be piles of them. We'll talk about this a lot. I will not always talk about stewardship the way I have been since August, right? This is kind of stewardship season, and it will pass, but we need you, and I need to know that I have given you every opportunity to hear the spiritual blessings of giving, to hear the miracles that happen when we, all blow up our balloons together. There's so much good here. So I've talked about proportional giving, I've talked about faith and tithing. It is a biblical command. So now, of course, the Bible also tells us to, never go to bed angry. Sometimes I go to bed angry, right? I'm not perfect. Some people, I've met people who were to double tithe. They increased 1% every year and said, why would I stop at 10? Now, they were people who were blessed with a spiritual gift of extreme generosity. Other people are blessed with the gift of kindness. And other people are blessed with the gift of really studying Scripture, right? We all do what we can within the grace of God. So again, there's no comparison. Comparison is the thief of joy. But proportional giving is commanded in Scripture. Tithing of what God gives us, including our time, including our energy, including our finances. But if this hasn't been a practice for you, don't feel like you have to go in at the deep end. Take this into your heart and your household and your prayers. And we do ask then that you would return this, and it will not only be me, preaching to you who are here, this will go out in mailings. So there we are. Any questions or thoughts about that? I'd be very interested later, there's more coffee and more treats. I would be very interested to hear your experience of being taught how to give and how much to give. So that would make me a better pastor and a better leader in our community. Can I turn it back over to you?
Thank you all for coming. This is important stuff, and I appreciate you being here.
Indeed.
Edna?
I don't really need to come from.
Sure.
When can we expect to hear what the finance committee or whatever it was?
When do we expect to hear how giving was through the end of September?
Right, or no, how their ideas and what they.
Yes. Well, so the idea is our October council meeting is the third Thursday in October. I can't remember if it's the 17th or other date. The idea is the council meets at 7. At 6 o'clock, for anyone who's interested in our financial decision-making processes, to come and join from 6 to 7. If that's not enough time, we'll figure out additional time, whether from the council meeting or another date to meet. But we have a lot of wisdom, a lot of care, and we have some different ideas amongst us. That should be a blessing, but it can lead to tension, right? So that's another piece, is for me to be present and try to make sure that voices are heard and everyone feels advocated for as they share their thoughts and their ideas and their reasoning as well. So, and again, I'm all ears as you process this. If there are things you feel are getting hit too hard or mentioned differently than you expected, please let me know. Indeed. So in our bulletin in this season, each week we say, go in peace, do not lose heart. I would say take heart. Take heart in the goodness that is here. And we do indeed, we go in peace to love and serve the Lord. Amen. Thanks be to God. Amen. All right.
Thank you, everyone.
There's more goodness to eat and consume there.